Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. We've been talking about green investing and, socially responsible investing and all that, right? So, I want to talk about stakeholder capitalism, right? Kind of go into stakeholder versus shareholder capitalism and stuff like that, right? But first off, what is stakeholder capitalism? Well, so it's a system in which corporations are oriented to serve the interest of all of their stakeholders, right? So among the key stakeholders are customers, suppliers, employees, shareholders, and local communities. Now, under this system, a company's purpose is to create long term value and not to maximize profits and enhance shareholder value at the cost of other stakeholder groups. All right. Now, supporters of the stakeholder, capitalism system, right? They believe that serving the interest of all stakeholders, as opposed to only shareholders, is essential to the long-term success of any business. Notably, right, they make the case for stakeholder capitalism being a sensible business decision in addition to being an ethical choice, right? Let's talk about the history of stakeholder versus shareholder capitalism in the United States, right? Because of the debate about the role and responsibilities of businesses and society, it's produced various theories throughout history, right? Proponents of stakeholder capitalism, someone like, there's an economist called Joseph Stiglitz, right? He believes, right, it should replace shareholder primacy as a principle of corporate governance, right? Now, shareholder primacy, or the idea that a corporation is only responsible for increasing shareholder value, was made popular by a Nobel Prize winner. His name is Milton Friedman, right? And this was way back, 50 years ago in like the 1970s, right? But he argued that executives work for the owners, right, or the shareholders, and the only social responsibility of a business is to use its resources and engage in activities designed to increase its profits so long as it stays within the rules of the game, right? Which is basically saying, engages in open and free competition without deception and fraud, right? Now, some of his writings on the theory were so influential that they helped shape corporate governance laws in the US. Right now, during this period, they saw executive and employee stock based compensation explode in the country, right? As the interests of top executives were being aligned with shareholders, who were increasingly perceived as being the most important stakeholders. Now, there was also a rise in hostile takeovers, with corporate raiders neglecting the well being of non investor stakeholders. In the late 1990s, the Association Business Roundtable began endorsing principles of shareholder primacy. So the tide is shifting, however, and companies and business leaders are now calling for a return to stakeholder capitalism, which is currently prevalent in Europe and was formerly the norm even in the US, right? But despite the comparisons to shareholder focused companies, investors themselves may lead the charge to institute stakeholder capitalism. Investors can try to use their shares in a company to influence its behavior, encouraging it to be more heedful of the welfare of all of the stakeholders. Known as shareholder advocacy, right? This is done through dialogue or shareholder resolutions. Alternatively, investors use negative screening to avoid companies that harm other stakeholders, which is known as socially responsible investing, right? Or they practice impact investing by only buying shares in company whose strategies have a positive impact on society or the environment. There's two previous videos I've done on each one of these topics individually, right? Impact investing and socially responsible investing. If you guys want to check those out, I'll leave a link down below. So let's talk about that business roundtable, right? In August of 2019, right, that business roundtable we talked about, they released a new statement on the purpose of a corporation, which said all its member companies share a fundamental commitment to all their stakeholders. So there's a quote, right? The American dream is alive but fraying, right? This is the chair and CEO of JP Morgan, right? Jamie Dimon at the time, right? And chair of Business Roundtable, right? That's big dude. Now, major employers are investing in their workers and communities because they know it is the only way to be successful over the long term, right? These modernized principles reflect the business community's unwavering commitment to continue to push for an economy that serves all Americans. So I feel like, he's saying that they're trying to do their best for the communities that they are a part of, right? Well, the World Economic Forum, their 50th annual meeting in Davos, is it's focused on stakeholder capitalism within the central theme stakeholders for a cohesive and sustainable world, right? And this was back in 2020. Okay, Professor Klaus Schwab, founder and executive chair of the World Economic Forum and a longtime supporter of stakeholder theory, said people are revolting against the economic elites, right? They believe have betrayed them. And our efforts to keep global warming limited to 1.5 Celsius are falling dangerously short. Now, the World Economic Forum updated its Davos Manifesto, which is just a set of principles that underpin the event, for the first time in about, I think it's a little over 40 years. Now, it very plainly states at the top, right? The purpose of a company is to engage all its stakeholders in shared and sustained value creation, right? And it says companies should have zero tolerance for corruption, they should uphold human rights, and pay their fair share of taxes. Now, the organization and the big four accounting companies are also developing a set of universal metrics and disclosures that companies can include in their annual reports to measure their social and environmental performance, right? By aligning companies with asset owner and asset managers through common, limited, and meaningful metrics, we can ensure sufficient capital is available to meet the sustainable development goals, right? The guy who said that is the CEO of Bank of America, an international, business council chair. His name's Brian, right? His last name is like Moynihan. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm sure I'm going to butcher it, right? But during a panel discussion at Davos in 2020, McKinsey and Company global managing partner Kevin Schneider said, economist Adam Smith clearly said the responsibility of the business person is to give to the community and enrich everyone. And I think we lost our way a bit in forgetting that, is what he added, right? Every CEO needs to sit down and come to grips with the fact that if I don't have teachers to teach the children of my employees, then the best employees aren't going to come to work for our company, right? And the person who said that is Cisco chair and CEO Chuck Robbins during the same session, right? He also added, we have to ensure as businesses that we have strategies to apply our capabilities, our skill sets, our employee base, and our financial resources to actually solve these issues, right? Okay, well, what does this look like in practice, right? Well, stakeholder capitalism can either be an ideology adopted by leaders at individual companies or a model enforced by governments through laws and regulations. So, some of the ways companies can independently demonstrate a commitment to stakeholder capitalism, right? Let's go over some of them. So, paying fair wages, reducing the CEO worker pay ratio, ensuring safety in the workplace, lobbying for higher tax rates and avoiding tax loopholes, providing good customer service, engaging in honest marketing practices, investing in local communities, and preventing environmental damage. Now, while all of these sound really good, realistically, doing all of them is probably unrealistic, right? And there is no defined set of expectations of companies that make such a commitment. However, Just Capital, an independent research nonprofit, surveyed about 4,000 Americans on what issues they believe U.S. companies should prioritize most. The top priorities of corporations, according to the people who responded, should be paying a fair wage, acting ethically at the leadership level, right? Paying a living wage, providing benefits and work life balance, providing equal opportunity, and making beneficial products, right? According to a Stanford University study based on a survey of over 200 CEOs and CFOs of companies in the S&P 1500 index, most executives believe they are already doing a satisfactory job of incorporating stakeholder concerns into their corporate planning and not receiving sufficient recognition. Only 50% believes their stakeholders understand what the company does to meet their needs. This figure is 33% and 10% when the question is about institutional investors and the media, respectively. So, what are some criticisms of all this? Well, critics of stakeholder capitalism tend to believe corporate leaders are self serving and would enrich themselves if allowed to control the purpose and role of companies. An emphasis on shareholders, it is believed, keeps executives adequately restricted and focused on increasing profits. Now, this is said to ensure companies do not become stagnant or uncompetitive. Right? Critics also argue that shareholder capitalism is the reason public companies in the US have immense value versus public companies in other regions like Europe where stakeholder theory is more popular. So what do we take away from this? Like what are we understanding? Well, corporations should serve the interest of all their stakeholders. Focus is on long-term value creation, not merely enhancing shareholder value. Now, it was the norm in the US until Milton Friedman argued that corporate executives are only beholden to the owners, or otherwise known as shareholders. And then supporters believe it should replace shareholder primacy. Now, whether you believe this is how companies should act, whether you believe this is how they currently do act, whatever whatever you believe, right? I hope that maybe you learned something today, right? I always hope that I'm giving good information that maybe you didn't know. But I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, I'd really appreciate it if you did. If you liked the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up or maybe share it. But until I see you guys in the next video, y'all be safe.